So this morning I got an automated email notification from itch.io that Maddie Makes Games released a new game, Celeste 64 Fragments of the Mountain. It's Celeste in 3D, but it's not just that. The folks at XOK somehow managed to create a game that not only encapsulates the charm and feel of the original Celeste, but it genuinely feels like a Nintendo 64 game with all of the associated sounds, graphics, cliches, and gimmicks. Because of how well this game pays homage to the good old N64 days, it honestly made me feel nostalgic, even though it was the first time I'd ever played it. So in this video, I wanted to take a break from the devlogs we usually make for our game Tethergeist and delve into the genius behind Celeste 64. Anyway, the first thing I want to discuss is just how perfectly they translated their 2D pixel platformer into the 3D space with this one. One of the first things I noticed when I booted up the game was how Madeline still felt like Madeline. Her jump had the exact same controlled feel, just high enough to not feel restrictive, but not too high to make her feel difficult to control. The same can be said for her walking physics. She accelerates at the same rate she always has, and doesn't slide around when I let off the joystick. Every decision they made was to intentionally make Madeline feel as responsive as she always has. Even the way she is animated feels like the same old Madeline. The way she squishes and stretches, and even the physics in her hair are all practically identical to her 2D pixel form. Her double dash hair is even longer like it was in the original game. Outside of that, this game also stays true to the original color scheme and artifacts found in the original Celeste. The trees, snow-covered ground, construction beams, blue bricks, and spikes everywhere all stay true to Celeste's original form. I mean, even the car is parked right there at the beginning with it irresistibly asking you to jump on it. Even the music follows the same melodies as they did before, with one large exception. They no longer sound like music from the Super Nintendo days. The songs, just like everything else in this game, feel like they're straight out of the glory days of Nintendo 64. So that brings me to my second point, just how well they played into the nostalgia of N64. Looking at the sound and music designed specifically, they really nailed this one. Listen to how they used the classic electric drum sounds and synths from the 90s in the main level theme. Or even better, pay attention to this moment when you get a strawberry, and how it just feels like every collectible you got as a kid in those N64 games. The character pauses to celebrate. The item glows in the middle of the screen. Fake MIDI brass instruments play a jazzy little ditty. It's just too much nostalgia to handle. I also have to point out the way they used synthesized voices to create the a cappella song for the Strawberry Challenge rooms. Just like Mario games of yore. Seriously, I immediately laughed and teared up just a little when I entered the first strawberry room with this music playing. They even got the objects in the room dancing along to the music. Just classic. Beyond that, they've also made this game feel distinctly 64 by the way you can move the camera during conversations, or how there are signs posted around town that have their own personalities and give you tips on how to play. Everything about this game is crafted so intentionally. In the conversation with Madeline at the end of the game, Maddie says she's been playing a lot of old games lately as a way to reconnect with her childhood, and it really shows. The last thing I wanted to touch on was just to call attention to some of the design decisions Maddie and team made in this game to make it the best experience possible. There are little things that maybe most players won't consciously notice, but they're things that make a radical difference in making the game feel premium. Truly, it's one of the secret ingredients to XOK's success, their attention to detail, and the way they curate games that just feel good to play. As mentioned earlier, in Celeste 64, Madeline just feels responsive. The tight controls lend themselves really well to the naturally difficult nature of traversing Celeste Mountain. Even in this 3D space, they've managed to strike that perfect balance between a character that's absurdly easy to control with levels that are difficult. It's this combination that makes for that sweet feeling of accomplishment when completing a challenge. XOK has stayed true to this principle. Celeste 64 also taps into the excitement of exploration, something that isn't new to gaming, but has been a key ingredient for so many games, especially the early N64 games. While I adore 2D games, they tend to struggle creating a sense of curiosity in players, at least in relation to the landscape. Part Part of what made Ocarina of Time so enchanting was being able to see across Hyrule Field and wonder what lies over the next hill, or what stories and adventures you'd find in the next town on the horizon. It's this sense of wonder that Nintendo has really capitalized on in their latest open world installments. Similarly, Celeste 64 elicits these feelings of exploration in players, with all of these floating obstacles and landmarks in the distance. It makes you want to wander and see what challenges and story points you'll find in each area. This is something that wasn't at all present in the original 2D Celeste, and I think Maddie's decision to create an exploratory world like this was a wise and fun way to move into the 3D space. Anyway, those are at least some of my thoughts on Celeste 64. There's plenty more to unpack here that I haven't covered in this video, like the book mentioned by Granny, or the conversation Maddie and Madeline have at the end that seems to foreshadow both in-game story points as well as things Maddie is experiencing in real life. I suppose I'll have to leave those things for another day. What I want to close on though is just how impressive this game is. The team said they made it in about a week, which is just insane considering how deliberate and polished it already feels. It stays true to the 2D Celeste roots while nostalgically and artfully showing the world that XOK can make masterful 3D games as well. It's my hope that this isn't the last we see of Celeste 64, that just maybe we can one day see this become a feature-length game from XOK that brings us all back to our love for N64 and the captivating story of personal growth and emotional well-being found in Celeste. Regardless of what XOK makes next, I'm sure it will be a masterpiece. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comments and consider subscribing. I'd love to start making more videos like this one and add to this wonderful online community of indie development and gaming. With all of that said, thank you so much for watching.